Hello, I'm Mike Bain from Christian Voice New Zealand, and hey, thanks for joining me as we take a look at today's culture, particularly things like band-aids, boats and biblical buffoonery, all through the lens of the Bible. Hey, it's going to be great. Well, welcome to New Zealand, where the government juggles a collapsing health system, an education sector that's barely literate, and an economy held together with duct tape and prayer. And, you know, just when you think the circus couldn't get any more absurd, enter a handful of self-indulgent, petulant, self-absorbed protesters who decided to sail into a war zone, got seized by the Israeli Navy, and triggered a taxpayer-funded diplomatic rescue mission. Hey, bravo! Truly the pinnacle of Kiwi ingenuity. Well, let's start with Budget 2025, the government's latest attempt to duct tape the nation back together. A $3.2 billion investment boost was announced with great fanfare, kind of like tossing confetti at the house fire. But anyway, of that, the $1 billion is earmarked for a health sector so overwhelmed it's starting to resemble a triage tent in a disaster zone. The goal? Well, discharge 90% of emergency department patients within 6 hours. Ambitious, yeah, considering some patients are waiting longer than that to be seen, let alone treated. Now compare that to the cost of our diplomatic intervention for our nautical activists. Between consular support, legal wrangling and international PR cleanup, we're talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And don't get me started on that teenage boy's girlfriend on television news insisting the New Zealand government is at fault. Really? But the cost of her boyfriend and his two friends, who had unusual Kiwi names, was that the equivalent of dozens of life-saving surgeries, hundreds of GP visits, or a year's worth of cancer treatment for actual citizens who didn't decide to play hero in hostile waters. But hey, priorities, eh? But education fares no better. The government is throwing $734 million at the sector, hoping to boost student attendance to 80%. Well, not excellence, not achievement, but just showing up, because apparently turning up is now the benchmark for success. Meanwhile, Year 8 students are struggling with basic literacy, and teachers are expected to perform miracles with whiteboard markers and burnout. And then there's the economy. The government insists it's tightening spending, investing wisely and controlling debt. But when a group of ideological thrill seekers decides to hijack a boat and sail into geopolitical chaos, suddenly the purse strings loosen. Because nothing says fiscal discipline like the funding of consequences of someone else's reckless self-expression. Let's talk about those protesters. These weren't seasoned diplomats or humanitarian experts. They were, as I've said, self-righteous, self-indulgent, petulant activists who mistook international waters for a stage and their own opinions for divine mandates. Their mission was to break the blockade around Gaza. The result? Well, arrest, detention and a taxpayer-funded rescue. The consequences of their actions weren't just diplomatic. They were financial, moral and deeply insulting to every New Zealander waiting for surgery, struggling to pay rent or trying to teach in an underfunded classroom. And here's the kicker. If these protesters had applied even a fraction of their energy to solving New Zealand's domestic crises, you know, things like poverty, homelessness, mental health, child abuse, well, we might actually see change. But, oh no, it's far more glamorous to chase headlines in foreign conflict zones than to roll up the sleeves and fix what's broken at home. Now, the Bible has a few things to say about this kind of behaviour. Proverbs 13:16. Every prudent man acts with knowledge, but the fool flaunts his folly. Now, these protesters didn't just flaunt their folly, they live-streamed it. Proverbs 18:2, a fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his own opinion. Sound familiar? It's the anthem of the activist who believes volume equals virtue and that consequences are someone else's problem. And then there's Proverbs 26:11. As a dog returns to its vomit, so fools repeat their folly. Now, this isn't the first time that New Zealand has had to clean up after ideological adventurism, and it won't be the last. But maybe it's time we stop rewarding it. But let's be clear, protesting injustice is noble, but doing so recklessly without wisdom and at the expense of your fellow citizens is not. It's foolish, it's arrogant, and it's costly. Every dollar spent on diplomatic indulgence is a dollar not spent on surgery, mental health support, or literacy programs. Every hour our officials spend negotiating the release of petulant activists is an hour not spent fixing the broken systems that affect real lives. So what's the solution? Well, apparently leaving them under the protection of the Israeli justice system, well, it isn't an option. Shame. But maybe some wisdom, maybe some accountability, and maybe a national reading of Proverbs. Because if New Zealand is going to survive this era of economic strain and activist absurdity, it needs more than budget boost and diplomatic band-aids. It needs discernment. So let's teach our students to think critically, not just show up. Let's fund hospitals to heal, not just triage. Let's build an economy that rewards prudence, not performative chaos. And let's remind our citizens, especially the ones with a flair for nautical protest, that wisdom begins with understanding, not impulse. And above all, let's allow God to come back into our homes, schools, workplaces, and our nation. You know, in the end, the cost of stupidity isn't just financial, it's moral, it's cultural, it's spiritual. And if we're not careful, we'll find ourselves not just paying for foolishness, but living in it. Hey, thanks for joining me today. As always, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel and leave your comments. And lately, we've been asking you to go to our website to subscribe for our weekly newsletter. But over the past week, we've been, well, in the process of making some changes. And our website, well, it's just not available at the moment. But you can still subscribe. Just drop us an email at christianvoicenewzealand@gmail.com with the word subscribe in the topic line, and we'll take care of it for you. Hey, have a great week, and let me leave you with this word of encouragement from the book of Titus. It says, "For the grace of God has appeared that offers salvation to all people." It teaches us to say no to ungodliness and worldly passions and to live self-controlled, upright and godly lives in this present age while we wait for the blessed hope, the appearing of the glory of our great God and Saviour, Jesus Christ, who gave himself for us to redeem us from all wickedness and to purify for himself a people that are his very own, eager to do what is good. Hey, until next time.